Oops. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just getting the agenda up here for today's meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like to thank Stuart and Van for joining us today, so we can kind of talk about some of the questions we might have over the redevelopment of the village, or the development of the village green. I'd like somebody to approve the agenda. And if you could, okay, Councillor Broderick and Krista?
Yep.
Okay, are there any comments or additions that we need to add to the meeting? Okay, seeing none, can I have a vote, please? All those in favor?
Put your hand up in front of them.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that carries. Is disclosure of pecuniary interest or nature thereof. Does anybody have pecuniary interest?
None. No.
Okay, and approval of the minutes from May 12th. Has everybody had a chance? Can I have a motion?
I move.
Councillor McKechnie and Ted, were you at that meeting?
Oh, yeah.
I was listening, but I was not voice on, but I saw the whole meeting.
Okay. I don't think we had, yeah. Krista, were you?
I wasn't at the meeting.
You weren't at the meeting either.
No.
Okay.
No.
Manfred? Okay.
Yes.
Manfred will second the motion. Are there any other comments? Okay.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Can we have, sorry, all those in favor? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, and then the business arising out of the meeting. The Village Green Site Plan. We had some questions from the last, from our last meeting that Terry kind of addressed. Does any, Terry, do you want to speak to it at all?
Sure, yeah, sure, Deb. So from our last meeting, if you recall, we shared the plans that Stuart and his team had forwarded to us. So the committee had a series of questions. I think it was about 5 or 6 questions, slash concerns. 5 of them. So I sent those to Stuart and his team, and Abby Scott, and so they got back to us and shared their answers, and I think we shared those back with the committee. So we're here today. I think Stuart and Van want to kind of show and address those concerns that were identified to the whole group. Okay. And it might generate more discussion. It might generate some more questions. And I think at the end of the day, the goal here is to have the committee be comfortable with the designs that were put forward, and that it meets the accessibility for our township.
Okay, and Van or Stuart, you guys had, you've seen some of the questions that we had. Was there any comments that you wanted to make?
Well, I just thought, I thought when I heard that this meeting was on, I thought it might be good just so that we could walk quickly through the questions again. I know they've been distributed, but I think, as Terry said, I want to make sure that we're open and that there may be other questions that come up around this rather than just these 4 or 5 questions. I've asked Vin, his name is Vin Van.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay.
And I've asked Vin to put together, well, first of all, just to put the slide up. So if you could pass over to him the reins to be able to put the plan up, then we'd like to just walk through with you because it is important. We view accessibility as really important for our whole community. And I think we've been very careful about designing it that way, as have PFS. And I think he's also got a ton of experience. And we may be doing some new things that you may want to do in other places as well. So it's all, it's intended to be, from our perspective anyway, a feedback session going both ways. And if there aren't a lot of further questions, that's fine too. We just want to make sure you're totally comfortable and satisfied. But there is one question at the end that I would like to talk about, which is where do we put the parking? But maybe we could just leave that item to the very end, if that's okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
And when our accessibility committee, you understand, is all lay people,
I
right?
understand. Yep. Yep.
Who have, it's more of a, well, we have an interest in accessibility and what it means for the township, but we are by no means experts. So we may ask questions, or we think, when we have, although the plan may be this way, we have an opportunity to change something, there's kind of food for thought. Like you may be in a spot where you are meeting the needs of what we have in our plan. But if we had, something you don't have to do, but if we're doing it now, it might be cheaper to do it now than do it later, right?
Yep.
While you're doing the whole redevelopment.
Yep, absolutely. And I think we do appreciate that. And I've lived my whole career. I've always been the kind of person who said, there's no dumb question in the room, because frankly, I've been usually the one asking the dumb questions. So there's no such thing as that. We appreciate any and all questions are welcome. So Vin, why don't you put the plan on the screen, and then why don't we just quickly walk through the questions and then see if we can generate maybe one at a time, and as if people have questions, feel free to just interrupt and just say, hey, what about this and what about that? Because it's, better to do it at the time rather than wait to the end, I think. It becomes
Okay.
more iterative that way.
Right.
You got the plan up, but I can see it.
Everyone can see the plan?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, as Stuart had mentioned, we worked closely with the foundation to develop a plan that took into consideration of the entire community in terms of the demographics, from toddlers to sort of teenagers, adults to seniors. And we really try to instill that into the design at the beginning. So what you see now is sort of that articulation in its entirety. So I think I'll go through some of the questions that were requested by Terry. So the accessibility parking question, I think we'll leave to the end, as Stuart had mentioned. The second question is the foodland entrance to the park space. So currently right now, this is an older plan, and Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that currently on site right now, the concrete planter that's on the north side here against Foodland is now removed. So now we are moving.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So now we're moving the pathway, so it aligns with the Foodland pathway, and we're also enlarging it. So this area will not be crowded, and we expect it to be, super activated. It's one of the main entry points from the north side. So with regards to that comment, there is no there is no more bike stalls, and the pathway has been shifted, and it is fully accessible in terms of the pathway width. So the third question is relating to the pathway and surfaces within our project site. For the majority of our site, it is concrete unit pavers in various sizes, but we thought concrete unit pavers were a perfect sort of material to use to highlight sort of like a more rustic look to the village square. And we didn't want a sort of a site just full of poured concrete. So this sort of adds a bit of heritage character to the site. And we kept it quite simple in terms of materials, because we didn't want a lot of material changes. So that relates back to accessibility and sort of that transition to different materials. So as you see here, all of the paved surfaces are concrete unit pavers. The only other type of materials that we really used was wood decks, but that's a raised, that's more of a raised element. than it is on the surface. Let's see here. And
Okay.
then and in terms of the grading, most of the grading is very, as you guys may know, the site is quite flat. So there isn't huge grade changes along within the project site. So everything is a sloped pathway for drainage, but everything else is slopes less than 5%. I think the majority of the pathways are sloped at 2%, which is a very shallow slope. The only areas that are that have a bit of grade change is at the stage. So this, we created the stage, we lifted it up a little bit just to give that presence when you're sort of viewing the stage. And we've done two things here. We've added steps, very shallow steps to get to the stage, but we've also included a pathway behind here. So where my cursor is showing, where the hand is, that is a sloped pathway that allows assistive devices or anyone that has mobility difficulties to enter or to get to the stage. So we've incorporated that in design. We were very mindful that there are different demographics that are going to use this space, and there should be multiple ways and challenging ways to get to the stage. Okay. Let's see.
When you were talking about the concrete pavers and the curbs, like, are you looking at contrasting colors between those?
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
just in terms of the curbs, we have two types of curbs there. One that is flush with the adjacent pathway, so that allows users to get onto the lawn more freely. So you don't have to step up to the lawn. So it's actually at the same grade. So there's no raised curbs in this situation. The only areas where we do have a raised curb is along the site edges to hold the planting, and that's about a 4-inch curb. I think our curbs are quite wide as well. They're 8 inches and they're white. So that contrasts with the unit pavers that we do have on site. So people with low visual cues, this will be a way for them to sort of see the pathway. In addition to that, we also included medium height planting along the edges. So that also reinforces the verticalness of the pathways. Okay, so then I think the next question you guys had was relating to the raised garden beds. So in this site plan, we do not have any raised garden beds. They, like I had mentioned, there are shallow curb garden beds. They're about 4 inches. So that does two things for us. It sort of allows full visibility across the site, and that's what we wanted to achieve within this plan. And we've been, when we did have to create seating, we were intentional where we placed them so that there were visibility across the site.
Okay.
Okay. And then, sorry, go
The
ahead.
one thing that, so when we're talking about garden beds, part of the issue is that if somebody is in a chair or can't bend down to the flowers and stuff like that, that they may be missing out on some of the things as far as having the beds there.
The senses.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like the other senses other than just sight sort of thing.
Yeah, to be able to smell them.
Thanks, Krista.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead, Krista? Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing, and then you said it, and I just finished it for you. Absolutely.
And so our concern is that I understand that they're going in the same footprint that the horticulture has done in the past,
Right.
but you're putting in all the curbs. So the opportunity is there for us to make some raised beds that could enhance it.
Actually,
Right. So
Not all.
if I could just comment on that, Vin, one of the reasons why we took out the raised beds is because the Horticultural Society didn't see it as particularly critical. Secondly, they're quite expensive to build, and we're about 150,000 over our budget here at this point in time. There is an economic rationale to this too. This is where the rubber hits the road sometimes.
right.
But I would like to say that that's one of the reasons why we have these corners lined up, so that if someone wishes to sit in the corner, they can be surrounded by smell. And that's one of the reasons why Vin said that we want to plant a little higher near the walkways so people can simply lean over and smell it. And I think we can satisfy that particular need. If we had a lot of low planting and the fragrant flowers were at the back, that would be more of an issue.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination. I'm just being honest with you. It's a combination of economics, and then we're trying to figure out the planting in order to accommodate that particular need.
And just to touch on Stuart's point, where it's outside of the Horticultural Society's planting, such as along the stage and along this sort of southern edge, we have been very we have been adding plants that are various heights. It's from like 2 to 3 feet. So so we are cognizant of sort of different planting heights and sort of the accessibility of that as well.
Okay. I don't know. Accessibility always has a dollar figure to it. That's the unfortunate part, is it? I had a son, and every time he went to do something, it was $5,000. So,
All the furniture, no, but we should talk about the furniture and about all of the other things that we are doing.
well, yeah, and I know that there was a lot of thought put into that. I agree with you. I did look at that, and that was one of the comments, is I felt that there was a lot of thought put into that. So,
In a perfect world, we might have some raised beds, but frankly, if you have raised beds and you don't plant it properly, it doesn't do any good, because you can't stand up and smell the roses.
And
So it's a combination of things. I think if properly planted, we can manage that particular thing, and I think
Right.
that's something we're
And
sensitive
then
to.
also the other issue that we were running into was there was a few existing trees on site, and you can't really raise the bed up when you have existing trees. So for instance, there's this existing oak tree located right here. So there were certain criteria that we just couldn't do because of what was existing on site.
Yep. The other thing, in terms of the accessibility from Foodland, then that's worth noting is that by moving that pathway over, that allows us, we can move the whole pathway over. It gives us it gives us a greater clearance under that crabapple tree that's there, which is a magnificent crabapple tree. It's an ancient one. It's in rough shape, but we're going to get it back into shape. So
It will survive.
yeah. So the more we can move that path over, the better it is for that crab tree. And that will also, from an accessibility standpoint, it's quite low now. So we have to trim all these trees up to make sure that people can walk and move properly under them from an accessibility standpoint.
Correct.
okay.
Okay. And then I think one of the last question that Terry had was the accessibility of the site furnishings. So we were very, very, very particular with how we were going to design seating elements within the site. And as you can see, there's various ways you can sit. There's fixed benches, which are highlighted here throughout the site, but there's also these large seating, generous seating plans, which are, a different way to occupy a seat. And then we also have these shallow steps that lead you up to the stage. So we were very cognizant of how, sort of considering the range of demographics that we're going to use the site, and relating that back to how seating would work here. With the fixed seating, it's essentially a concrete wall with a wood bench top. And within the seating top itself, we do have two types of seating. We have one that does not have a back, and then we also have one with a back and armrest. So in our experience working with many projects in Ontario, with in terms of accessibility, it's always good to have armrests mixed in with the seating elements. This allows anyone that needs assistance to sort of hold on to the armrest and stand up and sit down. So that is why we have benches with armrests.
So are these something that you're fabricating, or are they something that you're purchasing?
Yeah, so we are, it's actually a manufacturer. We are just buying it from them, and we're customizing it all, and then we're gonna place it on top of the wall.
Do you have a
So-
picture of that, Vin? Vin?
Sorry, pardon me?
Do you have a picture of that handy?
Ooh,
Vin?
let's
Actually,
see.
it's not, there are specific heights,
Okay.
right, as
Ye-
far as accessibility and stuff like that. And we just ask that you make sure that they're within that,
Yep,
kind of
they're,
within
they're
that
with,
tolerance.
yeah,
Okay?
exactly. They're within that range. And because if you can see, these benches are quite long. As you can see, they're
Right.
quite long.
Yeah.
So we've also graded it at 2%. So at one end of the bench, it's slightly, let's say, higher, and then at the other end is shallower. So that gives you a range of seating height just within
Okay.
that one element.
Now, are
Um,
there places where if people wanted to, are there places where you could back a wheelchair in and actually sit up beside the bench?
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
we've also created generous areas. So for instance, along this stretch of benches, a wheelchair can easily back up to this location and be sitting side by side with someone. In addition, this location, for instance, this location down here, and anywhere along the plinth itself.
Okay.
So people are easily sit side by side, but what we found is that you want to give more generous spacing in front of the bench. So you have that face-to-face sort of interaction and not just only a side-by-side interaction. So
Yeah. And
within,
the only reason I say something is because these are like these, oh, sorry, you can't see my cursor. The benches that you're showing on the benches in the pathway areas, right? It's about the wheelchair being able, or whatever it is, being able to move
Yes.
out of the way. That's all. That's all.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then we've also, another seating element that we have is the large plinths. And these are another material, it's wood. And these plinths are designed in a way where wheelchair can be placed in front of it, so you can have a more conversational interaction with the community. They're also a little bit shallower, so you can easily go from a wheelchair onto the plinth itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And in terms of other site furnishings, we do have trash receptacles, and we've located them sort of at the edge of the pathway. So there's one located along the building here. There's one located along this curb. So we placed them in a way where it's sort of like at the edge of a pathway rather than something that's in the middle, so that it's sort of out of the visual, it's sort of guiding users within the pathway. Let's see what else. Am I missing any other site furnishing, Stuart?
Well, I have a few questions.
Yes.
I have my thumb up here for quite
Oh,
a while.
sorry, Manfred.
Oh, sorry.
You don't always show. Go ahead.
I like, in my own mind, I like to have this plan and fit to reality today. If this whole thing was built today, where is it 6-foot distances that people can don't have to run into each other? It seems to be there is no end to this this virus problem what we have.
Mhm.
So are we building something here for utopia what we cannot use later on in life?
So just to answer that question, the pathways are quite generous. So this pathway is
The one from Foodland to there, that got to be at least a 6-foot wide pathway, at least, or
Yeah.
8 feet at least.
So
The
currently right
question
now it is 6 feet. But I you know, this is sort of like one access point, and I'm sure you know, it's kind of interesting how we're using like public space now, and I find that within the sidewalks that I'm using, and sort of to like pass each other, it's
on
some
a Saturday
instances.
morning, that is pretty busy because most people
Okay.
will be parking in this parking lot, and most traffic will come through this gate and through the main one. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've also included other entrance points that are more, there's more space, it's more opportunities for spacing, including this entrance here, this entrance along here, and also the southern entrance, and then the entrance from the parking lot, which leads you into, I would say, sufficient pathway width, given the sort of spacing that are required right now.
Okay.
And sorry, just to speak to site furnishing, the other big opportunity for accessibility is these tables and chairs that are placed within the square, the sort of forecourt, and the terrace. So these tables and chairs are movable, meaning that you can move it anywhere you want. You can configure it any way you want, and you're allowed to move the chair and allow a wheelchair to sort of slide and sort of use the table. So we've intentionally have been successful with many projects in Toronto that has done this, and we think it's it provides ample seating, but in a very flexible way.
Okay. Another question I have is, are there any extra washrooms? Right now, if somebody has to go to the washroom, where do I go?
Trees.
The
The
6 feet
washrooms,
apart.
the washrooms are remaining where they are, and as part of the station on the green.
Those are the only washrooms, okay?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, they really haven't been used much, to be honest with you. I think we're going to be using them more now. And if you have big special events, we may need to add some for special events. But right now, they're really almost underutilized. But it's a fair question.
Yes, Krista?
Yeah, thanks. Vin, I want to know the movable table and chairs, the success rate in Toronto, has there been any stolen? Because they're movable?
So,
Like, is that going to be more of an expense for us too? I mean, I like the idea. I love the idea. I just want to know, like,
right. So
like,
I think it's really, it's more of an operational question and the maintenance question. I think in our experience with our other Toronto projects, there is someone that's maintaining the site, and there is someone that is sort of moving it into like a shed. So in this case, we have a furniture shed located right here, and the idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, but the idea
that's correct,
is to move the furniture into the shed.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, you're right, Krista. It could get stolen. There could be things stolen, but you know.
Well, I just think of the reoccurring expense. It's like it gets stolen, we replace it. It gets stolen, we replace it. Eventually, we'll just like see them in people's front yards. Like
that's why we have to brand it.
yeah, and I don't think Clearview that's going to happen in Stainer by any means whatsoever. But at the end of the day, there you go, right?
You know,
I mean, just to be clear, the foundation has a management agreement on the Village Green for the next period of time, 20 years. So during that period of time, we'll be responsible for for maintaining it and replacing furniture if it gets stolen and that kind of thing. So it's not something, it's something we're concerned about too. And obviously if it's a problem, we'll have to figure out how to solve it.
You know,
But I mean, if
Krista,
if we're maintaining it and our staff's maintaining it, then they get there at the same time every day and they put it away.
Yeah, and we'll have a person that'll be doing that as well.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay,
also-
Councillor McKechnie? Councillor McKechnie, you had a question?
Yeah, I've got three questions, quick questions. So the first one, the ramp going up to the stage, is there going to be a rail on the one side of that ramp? And second question will be the process that, are you, Stuart, are you coming to council on June the 22nd? Is that the way that the process works to present to council? And the last question is, currently the walkways in the current village green or the old village green, whatever you want to call it, what are they made out of? Are they made out of paving unipavers, or are they made, or is it currently concrete in there? So those three questions.
Unit paver, I'll do it in reverse. Unit pavers have been removed now. The site basically, just for everyone's benefit, has been cleaned and cleared.
Right.
So the fountain's gone, the unit pavers are gone, everything's gone. And it's been, we're putting up the hoarding this week. So it's all in the works, so to speak. Your first question was, Doug, what was which?
Yeah, is there going to be a rail on that ramp going up to the stage?
Okay, Vin?
so currently there is no railing, and I would call it a pathway less than rather than a ramp. It is only about it's only about 3%, which the minimum is 5% for a ramp. For a railings. So it is the same slope as this main line here, similar to the Market Walk here, the Cenotaph. So they are just sloped pathways, and it's just enough for drainage to occur, for water to sort of wash or drain away from the paving.
Oh, okay, I see.
And the stage isn't a high stage, Doug. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a low stage.
Mm-hmm.
How high is it in inches? In
I think it's about I think it's a little higher than 18 inches. I think it's about at the max height, I think it's about 30 inches. Which anything over 30 inches you need a railing, but we've made it shy of 30. So
Okay. Thank you.
we're meeting accessibility there.
Okay. And that last question was just a question of process. So Stuart, am I right? That you had mentioned in a previous comment to me that you're coming to council on June the 22nd. Is that right?
Well, it's possible, but I've got to solve a couple of procedural questions before I can confirm that.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And so Stuart, I'm going to send you an email regarding those pavers, but it's not to do with accessibility, so I'll leave it out of this meeting, but I'll send you an email. You'll get it tonight. So.
Yeah, one other thing, just for everybody's benefit, you see these little black lines down the main line that we've got there. Just to step back for a moment, this is the old train station design that's sort of been replicated. The stage is also going to have a canopy on it that will reflect kind of an old railway stop in smaller frame, obviously. And the reason why we're calling this the main line and have those cross pavers in, those are black granite, and they're going to be inscriptions on those, and they're going to be unique. Then maybe you've been more involved in that than I have. I know Ines is the chair, has been working on it, but what's the general theme of those going to be?
I believe they're just inscription relating to the culture and the heritage and the anything that's related to Creemore Village and sort of when it was established. So I think Ines is trying to work on the sequence of how these are laid out, and you sort of like can imagine if you're coming down through this entrance, you're sort of reading these inscriptions along the main line, and then you sort of enter the station. So I think that was the theme of
That's
this, the idea of the main line.
And, you know, so it gives a little bit of a flavor of what the village is all about. And that's kind of the story. And as I said, we're going to be using a couple of different colored paving. You can see the fountain over on the south side. I'll say south side. And that's going to have some water jets in it. And that'll be highlighted as well. We've got a table, a ping pong table, a concrete ping pong table that's just part of this, because that's sort of one of the things to do for the teenage kids. They'll have to probably provide their own rackets and balls, but it's been quite successful in different communities. It wouldn't appeal to me, but you know, it's what different communities are doing today, and so we'll try it out and see how it works. And there are the rocks that they've got here are going to be, that are using for climbing rocks for the kids, are all quite small. And they're intended to give something for the little kids to do. And we're not completely finished with that yet. We may add something as we move forward, but we're just trying to get this to a point where we can actually get it under construction, because we want to get it built this year.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I can't see everybody at once, so please speak up if you have any questions or comments.
Just the one question I have is regarding the handicap parking. So
Thanks.
Stuart, you're going to address that, are you?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Doug. Thank you for bringing that up. Handicap parking we've got on the site is currently, can you just point to where it would be, Vin? That's where we're currently planning the handicap parking. And it can pretty much go anywhere we would like to put it. There is a consideration of possibly putting it out on Caroline Street. There is a curb cut already at Caroline Street. You can see here the way Vin's pointing to the two stalls there. So it's, I did have a chance to chat with Lori Severn with the BIA, and I just got sort of a general response from her, and she kind of felt it would probably be better and more effective for the community to have it on the street. That way people could go into the station on the green, or could go down to the drugstore, or could go elsewhere. But she did have an interesting comment when I chatted with her. She said, you really should have someone talk to Jennifer at the drugstore and find out how important it is to have. She's got a stall right outside her door now. And parking in Creemore, as you are all aware, is very tight. So we're happy to put it wherever you end up wanting to put it, but there's a curb cut there now to put it on the street, but if you did that, you'd probably want to take away the other stall right in front of Jennifer's side door, because you could probably get 2 more cars into that area if you did that. So this is something that not for us to determine, but for you to reflect on, and someone should talk to Jennifer. And I mean, we're happy to go either way, but whatever would, and we'll also talk to the station on the green about this as well. But it's really more, this handicap parking is really about accessibility to the community as well as the village green. So by putting it in the parking lot, you're really not making it quite as accessible for the whole community.
Okay, when we're talking about the accessible parking, we currently have parking that that's being taken away by the redevelopment.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we want to make sure, and that was for the station on the green.
That's
okay. It's not, we're not talking the whole village, we're talking about community property, right? So if you're putting it on the street, that's kind of a different conversation than the village on the green accessible parking, right? And I think that we need to maintain it as close as possible, and it needs to be a consideration.
I
It's
agree completely.
okay, and it's I don't know how everybody feels about those 2 parking spots. Is everybody comfortable with those being there? Or, yep, Councilor McKechnie? Oh, just a sec, you're muted.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. You know, so those 2 accessible parking spots where the little hand is now, like at Village on the Green. Yeah, I think if they could be turned almost into temporary accessible parking, I would like to see, personally, my opinion is, I'd like to see more permanent parking out on Caroline Street, because that way, if anyone's coming, they've got access to the Village on the Green, plus they've got access to downtown. So if we're going to expand accessible parking, I would like to see it personally out on Caroline Street. Those 2 spots, so on Village on the Green behind the station where the Vin's got the hand there, sure, keep those as temporary accessible
Okay.
parking spots.
I don't believe that they can be temporary. Okay, because
don't think
the
so?
station on the Green has a parking lot, and it needs to have accessible
Right.
parking, right? And
Yeah, separate from the downtown.
yeah, like people park at the station on the Green anyways. Okay, if there's nothing going on at the station on the Green, people park in the parking lot at the station on the Green. It's public.
Yeah.
It's public parking, right? It's not.
Yeah.
People use our community halls that way, right? If there's parking available, they park there. But we need to maintain, like I do believe that we need to maintain that parking within that parking lot. And I just wanted to make sure that we weren't.
Deb, can I chime in?
That we weren't
Yeah.
losing spots.
Yes.
Yeah. Jump in there.
Sorry.
Yep.
Deb, can I chime in?
Oh
Yeah.
yes, Terry.
Yeah, just
Sorry.
not a problem. So 2 things. So one, I had a discussion with the chair of the station on the Green, and I mean, their concerns is actually even a step further. Their concern of losing the close proximity of the existing accessible parking that is very, very close to the existing door. So, I mean, they get the fact that this is a nice big project and it really bums up right up to their building. And that, you know, if those accessible customers are a little bit inconvenienced because you have to go a little further, you know, they're kind of okay with it, but their preference would be as close as possible to the door. So I'm just kind of reiterating that from the Station on the Green's perspective. I promised them that I would mention that. But with respect to moving the 2 parking north down to the south, as a staff, I mean, I highly recommend not doing that. I would almost even argue maybe that's even non-negotiable, because I mean, I would promote maybe having both locations, but I think we really need to keep the location in the Station on the Green parking lot. That parking lot has to have its own accessible parking. So I don't think it's one or the other. It might be one.
No, it
and
might be
the other,
both.
but I don't think we can get rid of the one in that parking lot, because that building gets used quite a bit for a lot of functions, weddings, family gatherings, celebration of life. And so that specific parking lot needs to have its own parking. So I'm just providing my 2 cents. Maybe it's a good idea to have it on the street as well, you know, but I mean, I would be really hesitant in moving those 2 away. So just thought I'd share that.
I think the parking on the street may be a discussion for another day with the accessibility committee.
I agree with Terry though,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, did somebody have a comment?
Sorry, that's Tammy speaking.
Okay, sorry. Oh,
No,
and
that's okay.
measures afterwards?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Tammy.
Thank you. And I was going to sort of echo what Terry's saying. As a staff person, I think we're a little obligated to have wheelchair parking in the parking lot for the Station on the Green. But also, I just have food for thought to the farmers market, which isn't our topic for today, but definitely it's been a concern of the farmers market on an ongoing basis about having accessible parking and moving the parking and so on and so forth. So just thinking ahead to wherever the farmers market is going to be after the project. You know, there's I have some thoughts there too, but I too would echo what Terry's saying about, you know, if there's an opportunity to do both within the Station of the Green parking and on the street, I think that would be a great move for Creemore.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor Measures?
Thank you very much. I think that we've heard a good presentation about some of the questions that were raised about this project. The question about accessible parking is actually beyond this project, because it does, as Tammy said, as Terry said, it is about the building. And, you know, the municipality is responsible for Caroline Street, as well as the parking lot and the building. So we can determine many parking spots for accessible purposes if we want. It's about making it work. And as far as working with the board from the Station on the Green, you know, we'll obviously take their input, but as always, we have to take our expert input, and our decisions being made by council is how we have to get this process through. So obviously the recommendation from this committee will be very important to councillors, and it's good to hear that you're talking about accessible parking spots, because we certainly need them. Not to throw a little wrench in it, but something else that I believe is going to be coming is we are probably going to be looking at more EV vehicle parking spots for chargers. So that'll be coming yet too. So that parking lot may end up having those type of chargers installed there. And then that brings in the question that was brought up about the whole idea of the market. The market may have to move down quite a bit, because we may have spots that we have to designate. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to it. I think overall, though, I think great congratulations to the work that Vin Van and Stuart have put together, answered a lot of these great questions. It's exciting to see this evolve, and I like the design. Good job.
Thanks, Mayor Measures. Appreciate that.
You know, I think sometimes we feel like we have such limited time in order to kind of voice our opinions that sometimes things may sound negative, but honestly, you know, it is important that we at least put those things out there, just so if you have a chance, because right now it's still on paper, right? And so there may be opportunities to change things. And, you know, I think you've heard our concern about the accessible parking. And part of the issue is we can't move the door on the Station on the Green. And the accessible parking was very convenient before this redevelopment was proposed. And, you know, it would be nice if it was closer to the door. That's all. I think that's kind of a reiteration of most of the committee members, is they're concerned about how far the parking spot is moving away from the Station on the Green entrance.
Okay, that's a good point. Just on, has everyone finished their comments, or maybe?
Is there anybody else that would like to comment? I can only see part of the screen, so if you would like to comment, please say something. Mayor Measures?
Yes, sir. I do have one small thing, and that's only because it did show up when we looked at this map earlier. We have a public water fountain that's going to be on the side of the pump shed. Is that right? So it's pointed out right there.
Yeah.
That's really that's great. Absolutely, in the FADS document, public water fountains have a height and depth, all that. So the design of that and the engineering of it, we have to make sure it fits in the FADS, because public water fountains are in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Measures. The one thing that it's not a water fountain, it's going to be a bottle refilling station because of this COVID.
Same idea. Yeah.
We want to have a water filling station rather than a fountain that people put their mouth to. We think That's just,
Still are requirements for it, even as a filling station, there's still requirements for height.
right. Well, yes. No, that's fair too. That's true too.
Okay.
So as far as the parking is concerned, I mean, there is one other option, and that is when the Station of the Greens open is using the door on the back of the building and making that more handicapped accessible to get people into the building, directly into it, rather than having them to come in through the front entrance. Now, maybe that's not a preferred thing from a respect standpoint, but it is another possibility. And we're happy to keep the parking on the parking lot. As far as the farmers market is concerned, all I've heard, and this is just conjecture, I haven't talked to Helen, but I've heard that they're setting up down at Creemore Brewery in their parking lot, and that they're very excited about it, and they think if it works, they might even stay there. What we've offered them is if they'd like to come actually down the main line here and set up on the grass, they could actually utilize this area as well. But if they prefer not to, that's fine too.
That's a way better idea.
Yeah, I mean, we thought it was sort of a natural to fit it into this context. It would be a prettier context to put it in.
Yeah.
But you know, that's something that over time will evolve, and we're going to have electrical and other things here. We won't be able to have big trucks come in, but we think there's going to be a lot. We are hiring a program coordinator to actually program events for the park as well. So, and we have a maintenance person that's going to be a part-time maintenance person that will deal with those issues that we've talked about today and other. So, yeah, no, we're very excited about it, and we're very positive about it. So.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? I think any questions that I had have kind of been,
Yep.
I think they've pretty much been answered. And yeah, we talked about the widths of the pathways. Okay, and the contrasting of the colors. Yeah, so our two issues with this project, and Mayor Measures and the two councillors can kind of take note of it, is the parking spots, the handicapped parking or accessible parking spots, and the other thing was the raised flower beds. Okay, there's still, you know, and I don't know what the dollar figure is or anything else, but I think that there's still there is room in the FADS document for those to be raised beds to be available. But Manfred, did you have a comment?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Fine.
Okay. I think at that point we don't have any motions to make. It. We're pretty much kind of advising you. I think you've answered all of our questions.
Okay.
So Deb.
Raised our concerns.
So hi, Deb, it's Terry.
Yep.
So just to elaborate a little bit on the process, and I think Councillor McKechnie kind of asked that question. So yeah, so Stuart mentioned that you know, he may be making a presentation on June the 22nd, but that presentation would be part of my report. So I'm on behalf of the department, we'll be bringing the report to council. And in my report will include the accessibility committee's concerns that were identified and the corresponding answers that were provided by Stuart and his group. So that will be part and parcel of that. There's all of our departments are also commenting on the project. So it's moving along very well. Stuart and his team with Abby are doing an excellent job in getting back to us on our concerns, which is fantastic. So if June 22nd works for us, then for my report, then that'll be fantastic. And then, yeah, hopefully council can make a decision at that point. So I just wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit on the process moving forward to make sure that the accessibility committee's concerns were identified.
Okay. So, okay, and I think most of the questions have been answered except those two areas, and you can, you know, as an advisory committee, we're here to advise, right? We don't make decisions. So I think I thank Vin and Stuart for coming, because I really appreciate somebody who knows what's going on here and explaining it to us. Because, you know, the charts and everything are great, but it's very difficult because we don't have the aid of a bigger screen. You know, normally we would be looking at plans, paper plans, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to see and visualize.
Yep.
Could I ask one final question, please? Deb, that is, in terms of the parking, if we were to flip the parking over to the other side and put it against the building, it would be right in the visual line of the where the farmers market used to be, or maybe, or may or not be. The reason why we put it on that side was not to obviously keep it distant, but to keep that space open for traffic and for movement and parking and accessibility for the whole community to go through there on busy times, which it can get busy. So to flip it over will change the architecture of the space, just so you understand. And putting it again, you can't quite put it against the building either.
Well, there'll be fire lanes and stuff like that we'll have to maintain. I'm sure, like Terry will know better than we would, but there'll probably be fire lanes and stuff that'll have to be maintained. Yes, Terry?
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's next. I was thinking of the same thing, Stuart. When we were talking about trying to get as close as possible, I was thinking about that location, but I think where it's identified right now, to me, is the best location. Yeah, it's a little bit further than it used to be. But I mean, you know, that where it says 1 with the circle, yeah, I mean, that you need that space. You know, we don't want to congest that up. So it's an idea, but I think that where it is now is the best location.
So as we look at the pictures, what kind of scale are we looking at? Like, how far are those parking spots from the door? Like, in the whole grand scheme of things, like, how far are we looking, Vin?
So let's see, 2, 3. Let me just do a quick calculation here. 3 times 4. Probably, you're probably looking at 15 to 20 meters in that range.
No, it's more than that. It's more than that.
No. So, Stuart, the pathway here is about 3 meters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about 15 meters.
Yeah, but you got to get to the door, so it's probably 25 meters.
Yeah, you see the door. Yeah, the door is at the end of your main line. That's where the door is. Yeah.
I think it would be at least 25 meters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking 75.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big difference from where they used to be, right?
Debbie, if I may say something.
Yes, Manfred?
Our car has a handicap sticker on because Janneke has trouble walking.
Yeah.
So if I had to park there now, I find this an impossible parking area for a handicapped vehicle because I have to drive in and then I have to back out into the constant traffic of people and then pull out. I think this is a very poor location for handicapped parking.
Is there an opportunity to turn it 90 degrees?
Then you're going to be losing parking in the parking lot.
I understand that. I understand.
Maybe that's fine. You know, maybe that's fine.
Because right now I would have to park right almost over to the building in order to pull out.
Then what are your thoughts?
Well, if we turn it 90 degree along here, I think the issue is parallel parking. Is that going to be more difficult?
No. Take those. Is there an opportunity to take those 2 spots to turn it 90 degrees so that you have 2
I see.
that are going to go east-west as opposed to north-south?
East-west against that tree on the north is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
There. Yeah. How wide are those stalls each? About 14 feet?
Their minimum standard, which on the top of my head I cannot, I can't think right now, but like I think it's meeting accessibility, under accessibility though.
You might be able to do something there.
Yeah.
Like from what Manfred's talking about, that way you wouldn't be pulling into, like you could drive into those and then you could back in and turn around and go out. It may give you some opportunity that way.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Or even if I may some, is this all angle parking all along the Foodland building? Is that all angle parking like that?
yes.
That's not
Yes.
planned there.
So maybe even if I would could park maybe 3-4 parking spots to the right, that way I could back out this way and I would not have to go right against the sidewalk where all the people are walking back and forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And actually to move those parking spaces 2-3 spaces over to the right, that really would not interfere in distances going to the building. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
I just thought to have it right next in the corner, that's a difficult spot to get out or
Yeah.
to get in.
Yeah, it just takes it farther away, right, Manfred, from the front door of the station on the green. So
Well,
you're always caught. These are the trade-offs, right?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's unfortunate, but they are the trade-offs.
But you know, you've got, well, I hope that you kind of take what we're saying and kind of go back and mull it over a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come up with something that we can try, you know. And I won't say that we're perfect because I know the street side parking in Creemore got changed about 3 times before,
Yes.
you know, they felt it was right. Okay, so nobody's perfect. We're just making suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, well, are there any other questions for us, Madam Chairman?
I don't believe so. I want
Your
to
woman?
thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate what you've offered us.
Okay.
And sorry, the agenda. I guess
So we'll leave then, Madam Chairman.
that would be fine. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the
Okay.
opportunity to talk to
Thank
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good
Thanks
day.
very much.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Kayla?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Do we have any other communications?
No, I've received nothing.
Okay. And we've reviewed any site plans that we have. There's something coming up, sir. Kayla?
No, I haven't heard anything from Scott or the building department.
Okay. Any new business or any comments for around town?
No.
No? Okay.
Everything is fine.
Okay, good. So we'll plan for a meeting on July 14th, but we'll kind of play it by ear because I have a feeling we may not have a whole lot of business. And maybe we may forego that meeting if nothing comes up in the next couple of weeks. Okay. Is everybody, yes, Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, if just before you sign off for another meeting. So I had asked, I don't know if this, I suppose this is to do with accessibility, new business. So I had asked Stuart there about the old paving stones, the unipavers or whatever that were in the old Village of the Green, and he said they've all been taken out. And I know in downtown Creemore, there's some problems with the paving stones and the sidewalks. They're in pretty bad shape, and there's dips and there's cracks and there's holes and everything. So I'm going to be sending an email off to Stuart to see if those unipavers are available that they've taken out of the Village of the Green to help replace the unipavers that are currently damage that are in the sidewalks in Creemore. Apparently those unipavers in Creemore that are in the sidewalks are difficult to match. I mean, you get unipavers, difficult to match. So I'm just assuming that they would probably be similar. Yeah.
It is kind of I would suggest that you keep Dan in the loop. Is it right, Dan Perot?
Yeah, I'll be meeting with Dan tomorrow.
Okay, well, maybe keep him in the loop and maybe have him reach out to Stuart.
Yeah, yeah, we're meeting with Dan tomorrow, and so hopefully we can get the old unipavers and use those to repair the sidewalk in Creemore. That's the plan anyway.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Good thought. Yeah, it's a good thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. If it matches it, it's all.
I'm not just another pretty face here, Manfred. I'm always thinking.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. That's good.
Good. Okay. Does anybody else have anything? It's nice to see your face, Ted. I gotta say, it's nice to have you back with us and being able to see your face. Krista, things are going well with you?
Yeah, I'm just pretty, have a lot of anxiety for the 700 clients that all want to get in on Friday.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
I'm noticing Terry's hair going, oh, I love it. It looks great long.
I gotta get a cut. Come on, I'm in.
Yeah, you know what, Mayor? I love your hair too. You got a lot of it.
Thank
It's
you.
great. Yeah, you're welcome. But no, yeah, just really anxious. But other than that, I'm doing so amazing.
Good, good. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Broderick, everything good?
Yeah, right on.
Everything's good with me. I'm going to grow a ponytail, I think, but no, we're all good.
Oh, good, good. Manfred and Yannicka, everything's good?
Yes, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay, that's good to hear. Mayor Measures, any comments before we?
Oh, thank you very much. You know, we're all just plugging away here. I'm hoping that we're continuing to be you know, productive by having these meetings in this type of format. I would much prefer to meet people in person, but it is a way of getting some of the business done that we need to do. So keep up the good work and remain patient, everybody. Thank you.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Good.
I am sure that a lot of your staff is probably zoomed out. And I thank you for participating, Terry, in the last 2 meetings. That's been awesome. And bringing Stuart and Vin today was nice. Okay. On that note, could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? Councillor Broderick and Manfred? All those in favor?
Hi.
Okay, great, guys. Thank you very much.